All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our next session titled Industrial Cybersecurity, Securing the Connected Factory with PKI, which is Public Key Infrastructure. We're going to learn all about that today. This session is sponsored by Keyfactor, and my name is Ellen Boehm. I'm the Senior Vice President of IoT Strategy and Operations. And I'm happy to be joined here by my colleague, Andreas Philip, who is our Business Development Manager, IoT. And with that, let's go to the next slide. We're going to talk to you about the agenda, some of the things that we're going to cover. So very briefly, just to set the stage, I want to explain kind of who we are as a cybersecurity software company. But that's brief because we really want to get into the meat of it and talk about why and how we use public key infrastructure in smart factories, and to share some best practices that we have been implementing with our partners and our customers for several years. We want to explain what is a device identity. And there's a lot of talk about that, but why that's important and how to establish unique identities for endpoints and for machines. We also have a couple different programs that I think we've rolled out this year. I think are very interesting around open industrial PKI and around leveraging our certificate authority, which is called EJBCA. So we'll talk a little bit about both of those programs. So next, I'm going to go through and just talk a bit about our company. So as I mentioned, we are a cybersecurity software company. We are global. We have over 400 employees, and we've been in business for over 20 years. And that longevity brings much experience when it comes to public key infrastructure, design, development, and implementation of that to form a solid framework of trust throughout enterprise organizations, throughout IoT devices, and throughout industrial applications, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So what we offer, again, is we have a variety of products, but we can deploy our solution in the cloud or all the way into on-premises with appliances and other pieces of hardware, which in many cases can be leveraged by our global factory customers. But we provide this full stack of products from the PKI itself all the way up through CLM, which is Certificate Lifecycle Management, which is a tool to be able to manage all these certificates and identities that you have issued into your devices. And that's important to be able to have that visibility to prevent outages and to be able to have strong policies about how you're renewing certificates and you're maintaining that root of trust, which is the foundation for everything. And then from a customer and growth perspective, we are in many industries, whether it's financial, healthcare, automotive, transportation. You can see some of the logos there on the bottom of the screen. But we have the opportunity to work with a variety of customers, which I think is exciting to help implement this security framework. And so from an IoT perspective, we are seeing many more industries adopting public key infrastructure, certificate-based authentication to be able to create that strong security posture. And from a company perspective, we're seeing adoption of that, which is fueling our growth, and it allows us to sort of reinvest and to expand into different and more areas. So with that, let's get into the good stuff. So Andreas, I'll hand it over to you to walk us through your pieces here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ellen. And let's talk a little bit about the public key infrastructure and the role of the public key infrastructure in today's smart factories and the industrial digitalized world. And so today, I want to share with you experience outlooks into regulations, guidelines around PKI in the industrial world, but also I want to share with you initiatives that we, together with other partners, we from Key Factor launched over the last years, and to establish and to boost the PKI usage in the industrial world. And but start with the smart factory, the digitalization in the industrial world. Somebody called it the next revolution in the industrial world. But in the end of the day, what we are talking about is that we are bringing the sensor that is down on the shop floor, that is built into the machinery or the actor. We are bringing it up into the cloud where we can manage it, where we can monitor it, and where we can use also the digital twin of this environment. And from day one, when we introduced, especially here in Europe, the Industry 4.0 initiative, cybersecurity was essential, was a major building block that must be implemented to bring everybody, the machinery, the components online into the internet and into the industrial Internet of Things. But over the last years, we see also that step by step, standards and regulations are now starting to consolidating the market of industrial cybersecurity. So when I started working as a business developer, coming from the cybersecurity PKI side, in this industrial market, it was in the end of the day the wild, wild west. So no standards, no regulation, no industry standards. Everybody was introducing his security concept. Everybody was displaying his usage of crypto technology for the industrial world. And in the end of the day, sometimes very strange and very funny implementation showed up. But nowadays, over the last 3-4 years, we see that more and more standards and regulations are coming up in the market, and that these standards are now consolidating the market. But to be honest, there is still room to improve. But I think we are on a very good step. An essential finding, an essential key learning for us is that the public key infrastructure is an essential, and it's one of the foundation building block where all of the different kind of strategy of the smart factory or industrial world of cybersecurity is built on. So PKI is absolutely essential. And I will show you why. So when I'm looking on as I mentioned, we are moving from the best practice and the white papers now into clear guidelines based on regulations, standard. Also, we see also here in Europe, you see acts are coming up now from the European side, from the European Commission side. And this helps us, but all of them relying on PKI technology in the end of the day. It's not directly mentioned. Sometimes it's not directly mentioned, but they all, in the end of the day, you can derive that the PKI technology, the X509 certificates must be used, must be implemented. I try to structure a little bit the upcoming regulations or the existing regulations and standard in some overall frameworks that we see. We see regulations and directives on the legal side or on the political side. And then we have on the bottom, the implementation side, the industry standards, who are mirroring the framework and the regulation and bring it down into the products and into the communication networks. So with the IEC 62443, we have the basic frameworks, that structured the industrial world into different kind of categories, roles, from the operator, product developer, service provider. And the 62443 provide us with security levels and functionality. And also what we also see is that this overall framework has also dedicated chapters for the usage of a public key infrastructure underneath. And that is what I can talk for the European area, because I'm located in Germany. And on the European regulation side, we see that from my point of view, three main acts are now introduced from the European Commission into the market. First is the Cyber Resilience Act. That is everything is talking. Everything here is around products with digital elements, how they are secured, how they are tested, and how they are classified when you want to introduce them into the European market. And then we have the NIS2 directive, and so the Network Information Security Regulation, and that is it's not a regulation, sorry, to be precise, it's a directive. It's not binding for the member states. So each member state has now on his task is to implement this directive into the national laws. And end of last week, I received the first proposal of the first German proposal for implementing the NIS2 directive into the German law. And that is everything around enhancing the cybersecurity in the European Union. And last but not least, and that was a very, very silent and more or less in stealth mode crafted machinery regulation that were released in April, the 28th of April, and where this regulation was machinery regulation was released at the European Parliament, and we are all now waiting for the final publication, which will happen in June of this year. And here we have dedicated chapters only for cybersecurity and trust for machine builders and machine manufacturers. So that's the regulation side. On the other side, we see the industry standards over the last years. And so with the 802.1 AR IEEE standard, that standard is around for years now for issuing secure identities. And later on, I will show you how this standard is the foundation for the whole trust chain that we have to establish from in the industrial world. But also on the OPC UA side, we have several different parts are now introduced and released as the discovery and global service part 12 of OPC UA specification, who is covering all the certificate management side of the usage of X509 certificates in OPC UA. And last year in December, the part 21 for the device onboarding, the first version was released on the OPC Foundation, and that is also a major step when it comes to the automated automated bootstrapping and onboarding of the devices in a secure manner in a machinery environment. Besides this, we have the bootstrapping and remote security service, our secure key infrastructure that was introduced with the RFC 8995. That's the Brisky standard, also for automated bootstrapping of devices in a secure manner in a machinery environment. These are the typical industry standards that we see, where we see step-by-step PKI technology is introduced, and PKI is one of the major parts in this standards here. But in the end of the day, when all of these standards, either the frameworks, the regulations, also the industry standard, the goal is to establish the trust over the whole supply chain when we are looking into our industrial world. And also, at the end of the day, we are looking what's operated on the smart factory floor. Starting from the device manufacturer, who are producing all these smart devices, smart PLCs, smart gateways, edge gateways, and controllers. The integrator, the machine builder, who are assembling everything together in packaging and fitting it into the machinery that they are producing, and then last but not least, the operator, who are operating the machineries on the shop floor, and the connecting and adding this machinery into their OT environment, and enabling all the functions and features and services the integrator built into the machinery. The goal here is to establish the trust between device manufacturer, integrator, operator, and over the whole supply chain itself. And that is, and all of the different kind of industry standard, but also on the regulation side, we see more and more frameworks and boundaries in which we are, in which we could, in which we are providing, or which we are using the X509 certificate and certificate technology functionality to establish this trust level. But in the end of the day, everything started with a secure and trusted device ID. That is the starting point of this whole trusted life cycle. That is where everything begins. So if you cannot guarantee that this digital device ID that you are issuing, for your new smart component is trusted and is built in, the whole life cycle, is useless. So in the end of the day, what you must establish is that you are issuing a birth certificate, the initial device ID, in a trusted manner, so that everybody in the chain who is after this, in the process, can rely on, can trust on this device ID, and says, yes, that is the manufacturer X, Y, or Z, and that is exactly the device, and I can trust this, I can rely on this. And here comes these good old 802.1 AR's IEEE standard in place. This standard is, in this standard, everything is laid out how the initial device ID is issued in the device, how TPM technology or secure elements are introduced and are used for generating key material in a secure manner, how the initial device ID is provisioned into other network and isn't into the integrator or machine builder environment. And that's the foundation. One of our customers, the Phoenix Contact, they introduced the digital device nameplate with an integrated device identity. So when a component, like a PLC component, a switch component, a firewall component, the mGuard component from Phoenix Contact, leaves the factory itself, the digital device ID is built in, and the whole process is based on the 802.1 AR. And that is this digital identity based on an X509 certificate. That's the foundation, and that the underlying layer for all upcoming functionality around this product component, around this product environment. It's a secure device provisioning, it's a secure boot, it's a secure software update, and it's a trusted communication. So, and that's essential. Over the last year, I found out in meetings with customers, talks with interested person, with the community itself, that everybody is asking us as a PKI technology vendor, key factor, hey, how could we implement 802.1 AR? What is the best? Can you give us some advices? How it looks like? How could do we have some best practices for that? And so that brought us to the point, and we introduced it this year at the Hannover show. We made a showcase how to implement the IEEE 802.1 AR. With the integration into our PKI issuing products EJBCA environment, and we showcase the whole process, how to issue the initial device ID, the IDEF ID, and then we are provisioning the operator or integrator ID, the LDEF ID. So that's part of the standard. We are not using a TPM technology. We are not using secure elements who are soldered on the PCB boards of the components. We are using a low-cost USB HSM from Swissbit, and we showed also how we can establish this, how we can integrate this into the standard itself. And as I mentioned, we introduced it during the Hannover show, this showcase, and due to the fact that we have an open source gain in our company itself, we will definitely publish our whole source code, how we implement this on our GitHub repositories over the, I think in the next upcoming 2 weeks. We will see this source code of the implementation itself. In addition, we will also publish the certificate templates that we are using and that we are using for implementing the standards, because that is also an essential part for the whole standard. So besides the implementation itself on the code base, you can also see how a PKI is configured and how PKI is configured and how the end entities and X509 templates are configured in the end of the day. So the good point is for you, it's also the showcase that we designed is also possible to be operative with our community edition. So we can directly go to our community website, load our open source PKI version in a Docker container, I suggest, and then you can directly integrate the use case itself. In addition to that, we will definitely also craft and record some webinars, how to implement this and how the integration with the USB HSM is done, and also how the integration into the EJBCA is done. So watch out for our webinar and our recording on our YouTube channels. That brings me to the point that, as I mentioned, in our DNA at Key Factor, we have open source. So we have the EJBCA, the open source PKI that is around since 2001. And so we think that also sharing what we know with the community and also with the industry helps also the industry around such a complex beast of PKI, and so helps also the industry to use PKI and to lower the burden to introduce PKI into this environment. That was the reason why Keyfactor is one of the founding members of the Open Industrial PKI service. We found out over the last years that especially the small medium enterprises here in Germany, the small machine builders and small component manufacturers that we have here, so these mid-sized company with the 2,000 up to 5,000 employees that's typical for Germany, they have a huge headache when it comes to the usage and into the introduction of PKI technology or everything around X509 certificates. And then we were sitting together with one of our other partners, the campus Schwarzwald, and it's an innovation campus here in Germany for machine builders. And we were sitting together and we were brainstorming, and then we are coming up with some ideas. And the first step to say, why don't we offering free certificate service, for this industrial world to help the companies to consume and to access PKI technology in a very early stage when it comes through product design and implementation side. That is one part of the Open Industrial PKI service. So we are offering free of charge X509 certificates for the industrial world. We are issuing device IDs. We are offering client-server certificate for all common protocol stack that we are using. And in addition, we are also offering code signing certificates. Who wants to introduce code signing and secure software protection mechanism into his product environment. Besides this, we also found out that we want to establish best practices and implementation examples, because that is what, in the end of the day, what the industry needs. Besides this free service for X509 certificates and device IDs, that's fine, but it's nothing without the services or best practices, how to integrate this, how to consume this, how to access this, how to integrate this, how certificate templates looks like when they are used in OPC UA environment, how certificate templates looks like when we are talking about IDEF ID in line with 802.1 RR. How to configure it. And that is what we in addition, what we are offering and what we are publishing now and what we are building up now. It's a knowledge database and in an environment where we are sharing this resources with the industry free of charge. And end of last week, we received a positive message from Entity Data, also a partner from Keyfactor, and they decided to join this Open Industrial PKI as a hosting partner. And they are offering, and they are hosting the whole infrastructure in their worldwide data center. And due to the fact that they also see that the industrial side needs help, especially when it comes to PKI services and the offering of PKI services. Talking about this and X509 certificates, if I PKI service, software as a service, everything is fine. But talking with vendors, components, especially with component vendors over the years, and due to the fact that Keyfactor and that we are working very deeply and closely with our customers in the industrial space, so we found out that one question is, are you ready, or is your product, is your service ready for X509 certificates? In the IT world, it is normal. It's standard. So when you are plugging in a Cisco router in your network, and this router needs TLS certificates, he has a proper built-in interface, and he can connect to your PKI service that you are operating and that you are running internally or externally or is managed. Yeah, there is no question about is interoperability given. But what about this new upcoming digital products, the smart products? And that brings us to the last initiatives that I want to introduce to you. That is the EJBCA Ready program that we are now, together with Campus Schwarzwald, we are establishing now in the industrial world. So some words about Campus Schwarzwald. Campus Schwarzwald is an innovative network and innovative campus in the Black Forest region here in the south of Germany. And it is founded by, I think it's founded by 15 mid-size industrial companies. With the goal to establish an innovation campus where we can test and operate innovative technology and see how they can adapt this technology into the daily business. So we are operating, Key Factor is one member of this Campus Schwarzwald, and we are operating a 5G network for test purposes. We are together with one colleague on site in Freudenstadt at the Black Forest. We are also covering all the security topics around the PKI environment and digital identities. And together with the Campus Schwarzwald, we are now offering test environments, the EJBCA Ready program, to help also machine builders and component manufacturers in this environment to be interoperable and connected to PKI services with their products. And so we will operate a test bed and a test framework where machine builders and component manufacturers could connect to and could test their PKI interfaces that they build into their product environment and to see if they are interoperable, if they are working properly, if the certificate profiles that they require are in line with the standards. If the trust store that they are using are proper integrated, and that's a complete service that we say, okay, we want to help you, we want to support you, that you have a non-profit organization who's helping you to improve your product functions and features. That brings me to the end of this presentation for today, and I think I talk about so many initiatives and findings that we collected over the last years, and that we established the service, the Open Industrial PKI, the EJBCA Ready program. But there's now what's coming next. I think the outlook is, for us, it's more that I think we are now looking deeper into the standards and protocol, especially on the industry side, to see and to find out what functionality do our products on the PKI side needed to support this functionality. Give you an example. OPC UA introduced, as I mentioned, the Part 21. That's a provisioning service and the onboarding service for devices in a secure manner. That also means that we have to add it could be that we have to add additional subject alternatives name into our certificate templates. But that is something that we are now we have on our list. We are watching, and that we are monitoring over the next year. I think at one point is the especially at key factor side, we decided to establish a center of excellence, especially for the IoT and industrial IoT, till end of this year, where we also want to provide you best practices, white paper implementation guidelines. And yeah, so I think there are so many different kind of directions we want to go. And I think I cannot name some specific points here. Ellen, do you have anything to add on this side?
Well, you covered a lot, so I'm not sure what else. That was really great, Andreas. I appreciate your time and talking us through, again, what you're seeing in the industry real time, what your partners and customers, whether they're small machine builders, all the way through large, industrial control system manufacturers. People are testing this out, they're trying it out, they're implementing PKI in their factories, they're using smart technologies, and they're implementing security best practices that you talked about today. So I feel like this is an ongoing conversation. I don't think we're ever going to really just say, here it is, and then let's, right. That's the current state. But that's why we and you are leading some of these programs around testing and implementing and sharing within the community about what we can do together to sort of implement some of this. So I appreciate your time and sharing this with us. And with that, I think we can go ahead and wrap up this session today. Thank you everyone for joining. I hope you learned some things and we've sparked some additional thoughts. Feel free to reach out anytime you have additional questions. Again, Ellen Boehm, Andreas Philipp from Key Factor. Thank you very much.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ellen Boehm, and as you could tell, we recorded that session previously, as my colleague Andreas is, again, out of Germany, so time zone was a little bit more convenient to record and then present. So I'm here live just to cover any Q&A that we might have. So just want to say, first off, thank you for those that have already asked a couple questions. I've been answering kind of as we're going along. So I'll go ahead and answer these last other ones, but Lucian, I believe we do have a couple poll questions. Are we able to kick those off right now if we can?
Absolutely, here we go.
Okay, so we got 3 questions just to kind of kick off a little bit more of the discussion. So please answer this again. Want to understand your experience with connected devices and what if any is causing you or your organization to start to use them.
And while we run this poll questions, feel free to again leverage the Q&A to ask more questions, not the chat option. You can expand.
Okay, great. Lucian, I don't know how much time we typically give. We're getting some good answers there. Okay, awesome. Some great responses. Okay, so let me sort of give some insights on this. So it looks like the biggest response was digital transformation, which I'm not surprised. So over half of people here believe that is why your organization is implementing connected devices. So that completely makes sense. I think the next biggest one, industrial automation, at least 50% as well. And then safety and security. So not surprised by those top 3. I guess what I'm seeing when I have customers and conversations about this, it's a lot about improving factory efficiency. So you might have a production line that normally has not been connected. You've done optimization to get the flow of parts through that as fast as possible, but there's additional insights that need to be uncovered to save money in terms of being able to produce something that is more custom to order, leveraging your existing equipment and being able to then make subsets of that production to be able to charge end customers more accurately. So encouraging to see that one. Okay, we have another poll question here. The second one is, and this actually, I want to see if what's changed. I don't want to say COVID because I'm trying to block that from my memory, but like the last 3 years, if you could use that as a timeline, how have your usage of connected devices changed? Are you seeing more adoption, more willingness to use connected technologies? Andreas mentioned a lot of the community coming together and talking about best practices, now more turning to regulations. So I'm just curious to see, does that mean that then in the industry that we are adopting or more willing to adopt connected devices? So from your perspective, is that changing, at a high rate, decent rate? Is it staying the same, or is it going down?
All right, 10 more seconds. Here we go,
Just to
displaying
see
the results.
What do we got here? Okay, so nobody decreased, so I guess that's good. As zero, some people have stayed the same. And then I think it's a rough equal split between increasing 25%, but a quarter of you have increased more than 50% in the past 3 years. So that's interesting too. And so what I've seen is, again, our workforce and the way that we work has really changed. I'm in my office here today, but we're still not back to 100% of everybody going in, 9 to 5 and working together. It's much more prescriptive. And when we have certain, meetings that would really benefit from sort of face-to-face, I think we're being more selective around that, which then allows us we have to operate virtually during that remaining time. Now, when it comes to a factory perspective, I know that that's very different, but there again, if we're implementing these connected technologies to be able to monitor, understand efficiency, how things are running, and then be able to make more decisions remotely, those are the benefits that I think we're starting to see. Another example I've seen in the medical space is just the whole telehealth, or being able to rely on data from smart and connected medical devices to tell doctors about patient health and how people are feeling and doing based on their treatments, which allows the healthcare providers to be able to operate and do more, because they're able to rely on technology, but secure technology, to be able to make decisions about people's health. So just a quick story there. Okay, one last question, I think. This is in terms of managing the cybersecurity around those devices. So again, a lot of you said that you're seeing an increase in using these technologies, but I'm curious to see how do you manage them? And this goes to, do you have people in-house that know how to do it? Do you use partners like ourselves to do that? Are you relying on regulations to tell you how to do that? And yeah, kind of what's the perspective there?
All right, 10 more seconds and we'll close the poll. All right.
Okay. All right. So here, also interesting. Biggest one is invested in new cybersecurity solutions. So again, I think we're in a great space. And any of you who are responsible for the cybersecurity strategy at your companies, there's a lot of investment that we're seeing in that, even in places where I see the cybersecurity budgets being one of the last ones to be cut, because there's impacts that can occur across businesses, loss of, again, if products can't be produced, if products can't be sold, if your business can't transact, if you're unable to be able to trust the data that you're collecting, all of that impacts the health of your business. So I think people seeing and understanding the risks, the cyber risks that are around us, and investing in that technology is important. I think it's also good here. I see that we're increasing training and awareness for employees. That was the second one. And that's something that I think is just a constant evolution of us being aware of everything from just best practices around authentication, around obviously what we talked about today, use of X509 certificates, signing proper signing practices, and just validating the authenticity of things that you're talking to so that you can trust the data, creating secure channels that can work across untrusted methods of transport. So I think all of those things we're talking about in the industry because we want to make sure people learn and understand what's the best way to do it. So that was great. Thank you very much for all of your input. So I think, Lucian, we still have a couple of minutes left here to go through these questions. I'll cover them here. And again, if you have anything else, please answer it, or you can feel free to reach out to us after the fact, and we're happy to answer more. But maybe I'll go forward with what I can see in here. So cooperation with Let's Encrypt. So again, as a platform for certificate automation, we can manage and give visibility into certificates that are issued from multiple certificate authorities. So whether that's a public certificate authority, a free provided certificate authority, any sort of standard X509 certificate, we can get visibility into, get under management, and then help provide automation around. And automation is important because we don't want to have a certificate expire and then the connection is invalid and then you can't operate. So again, we do have cooperation with them. Another question here was around favorite real world example or success story around PKI to improve connected factories. And so I think the story that I have around this one is in the space of machines that are doing laser cutting and welding, and again, very, very high value operations where the company was working on pretty high tech product for their customer, and the control point or the main access point for the machine itself needed to be very, very highly secure because of the type of product that it was producing. So I've seen the use of certificates at sort of the smart part of the equipment to be able to control programs, to control access, to control what's actually being produced, to ensure that the product that's being made from that piece of machinery is for the intended end customer. So some of that can be, you can kind of relate that also to where is the end device going to end up, whether that's sold into some sort of government or critical, really high security type environment. Those are some examples that I've seen. So I think there's another one here, experiencing security incidents using your setups. I think that's kind of a general question. In general, I would say I think it's really around designing. If we're designing proper public key infrastructure, and you know what is the root or the origin of all of these identities, and you have very proper root management. So in terms of strict policies and procedures around that root, how it's created, how it's accessed, how it's stored, keep it offline, I think was one of the most major important things when we build a PKI, and have the right procedures around accessing that. And then you basically can create infrastructure that comes off of that root that you will then inherently trust because you know the origin of it. So that's really what it's around. And then, so I guess when you build out a PKI with those best practices in place, you know that you're going to be able to trust the infrastructure that you've built. The one thing that I will say is that there's never we can't always say everything's 100% perfect, right? And in that case, we always talk about having a way to completely change out your root of trust. And so that means being able to stand up decommission a whole entire root and all issuings and reissue a whole new set of identities. And so that is part of what we help our customers be able to implement and be able to change that out in the event that something happens where something does get compromised. You can revoke all certificates, reissue under a new complete root of trust, and to do that very quickly, because in the case of, for example, the factory, we don't want any machinery to be inoperable or anything to go down. So we do that, again, not only in the industrial space, but for our vehicle manufacturers, or another example is with a medical device manufacturing, where again, the products are already out there in the world and they're operating, and you need to swap out all those identities in a quick manner so things can continue to operate. So I think that's very important. And the last one I'm seeing here around Kubernetes and Docker virtualization. I'm actually not an expert there in the DevOps area. I do know that we have technical experts that can talk more about that. If you'd like to send us a little bit more specifics about how you're using or what you want to use those for, I'd be happy to get someone else more technical to answer that. But I do know that we can use containers for certain applications. Oftentimes we can even maybe run our CA in that type of format, depending on what product what you're trying to do in the end. But again, I can try to get somebody else who can answer that in more detail for you. And I think that's all the questions that I see in here. Lucian, is there anything else we should cover for today?
No, I think this is great. Thank you, Ellen and Andreas and the team at Keyfactor for this session.